Welcome to Some Guy's Garage. We're back in the basement today for an update. As you can see, a lot has happened since the last video. It's mostly framed now, but I'll walk you through what I've done and then what are coming up as next steps. So let's get started. Okay, so first thing, let's talk about insulation. I have glued the XPS foam to the foundation, so this is 1-inch XPS foam. I've glued it everywhere there's concrete on the foundation. So this just gives me a thermal break, so everything even behind the studs has a little bit of insulation. And even just as I'm working through the rest of the stuff with the basement here, it gives me some R value just to kind of keep the basement a little more temperate and not waste a whole bunch of heat. This actually went pretty well. So it was just gluing it straight to the foundation. I didn't use any other fasteners. It stuck quite well with the proper PL300 foam insulation, and then followed it up with tuck tape on all of the seams. Technically, an R5 or a 1-inch foam is not enough for a vapor barrier, so maybe the taping isn't quite necessary, but it's just a little more complete, I guess, and gives it a better seal overall anyway for air movement, even if it doesn't prevent vapor from getting through. In addition to that, I did spray foam, so I left the boards about 1/2 inch to an inch, depending on the level of the floor, up off the foundation, or sorry, up off the floor, and spray foam that in after and cut it back flush. So that just seals all of that uneven area and made it so I didn't have to be super precise with cutting the foam. That went pretty well. The cans of spray foam actually covered a fair bit. I only had to use 2 or 3 to do the entire perimeter of the basement, so that worked out quite well. And then in the stud wall for the rest of the basement, I did replace it. There was pink insulation. You can see some of it still here, but where I framed in front, I did put Roxol in to replace the existing pink insulation. So this is R22 Roxol, because these are 2x6 walls here, whereas this is just a 2x4. But that just didn't necessarily need to be done. The existing insulation would have been fine, but Roxol does hold up better in the long term and doesn't allow mold growth or anything like that. So decided to replace those, especially before I framed in front. It just made it easier to get in there. I will eventually replace the rest of the pink insulation that you see around on this wall. This is the walkout basement, so there's no foundation per se. I mean, there is underneath, but there's no foundation here. It's just my exterior wall. So those, when I go to do electrical, I'll pull out all the pink insulation here and then replace it with Roxol when I put stuff back. And I put the extra pink insulation that I would have pulled out of here up in the ceiling just for now. And then the last bit of insulation that I did just before framing is you can see all up in the rim joist area and the header here above the door. I got one of those 200 board foot insulation kits. So they're the kind of the 2 propane looking tank things that you can DIY some spray foam, and did that all in the rim joist area. It's not enough to fully insulate it, but it's enough to air seal it so that any of the penetrations, the rim joist is the biggest area for heat loss in the basement. So getting that sealed up, and then I'll fill the rest with bad insulation as well. It's worth saying as well about it that you have to move fast. So I had it all prepared and cleared out. I did the entire perimeter. Probably can't see it from here, but I'll point it out as I go along. But you have to move really fast. So you have about 30 seconds before it starts hardening in the hose. So you just have to keep spraying. But otherwise, it actually went really well. So the fan tip works quite good, and did a nice job sealing up stuff like this where there are penetrations in the rim joist. It sealed things up quite nicely there. So you can see also I did the same thing on the other side here. Spray foam up in the rim joist and the pink XPS foam board on the foundation with Roxol behind. This is the bathroom back here, and it's actually where I started framing as well. So I'll just walk you through the parts that I framed and kind of in the order I did it. But I did start with the bathroom here. So I kind of started on this wall, moved on to this part, and in behind the furnace and hot water tank. We'll walk around out here. So kept coming around the furnace and hot water tank this way. And then we're going to sneak through here in and around the compressor. So the compressor used to actually be sitting here, which would have been in front of the door. So I moved that over and tidied up all of the electrical and air fittings like so. The main regulator that steps down from the tank pressure to the line pressure. The tank, these do 175 PSI, and most gas pipes only rated for 150. So having the regulator, this one's good for, I think, 250 PSI, but having this regulate it down just makes sure that I don't have any issues with the line pressure, just kind of as a side note. But got all that tidy up, and then came down this wall as well here, just to the corner. So actually then, after I'd done that part, I moved back this way and came along. So the wall here, this is where that kitchenette's going to go. I framed out this part of it first before I actually did the rest back in that area. So I framed this out and then came across with the wall this way. So there's the door to the furnace room here. And actually turns out the rooms seem bigger now, but there's going to be a fair bit of storage in here. Room for a central vac somewhere in here, and actually even shelving in behind the door. So they got something like 14 inches here, so I can put a foot deep shelf along here for extra storage, which is kind of nice. And then, yeah, so I continued this way and framed out the rest of this wall here. And then obviously door for the bathroom as well here. Following that, I started in the corner here. So just coming with a little bit of a step wall or a knee wall here, just because I do have enough R value in the foundation up above here or in the stud walls here, and gives me a ledge. There'll be a couch or something here eventually, sort of seating. So just having a ledge to put stuff on be kind of nice. I thought it would be a nice feature. And then frame down this way around the window and everything, and up to the stairs here. So we'll talk a little bit about the stairs in a second, but then also came around and finished along here above the washer dryer. There's some finicky stuff with all the piping here. Not my best framing, especially in this corner, but given it's a utility room, it's not as important. And then around and finished out the door. So I actually pulled the door out of the concrete foundation where it was mounted and actually have put it into the stud wall so that I can insulate around it and it looks proper, right? You get the drywall coming up to here and there's not some weird step in or anything like that. And again, just trouble with clearances for some of the utilities coming through. So I had to notch out a bunch of stuff there to clear that pipe and still get the door centered in the opening, which is unfortunate, but got to do what you got to do sometimes. So with stairs, you probably noticed there is a set here and a set here. So this is the old set of stairs over here. These are 38-inch wide, and they would have had or they do have a bull nose on the front. So you can see just here, there's a bit of that profile that has the nosing on it. So to do, and like I mentioned in the last video, to do the stairs here, I needed them a little narrower. So these are 36 inches wide. And you can see now I have roughly a 1/2 inch gap on each side. So the drywall will come down nice and flush and just fits nicely in the opening. I wouldn't have been able to fit the stud wall here without changing out the stairs, unfortunately. And then the other part is these are just a square nose. So it's a 1-inch plywood. It's still just a utility grade stair, but they have 1-inch plywood with no nosing so that I can put the vinyl plank right on top of these. That'll get glued onto the stairs, and the vinyl plank will have a proper nosing on it itself. So that's why I got the square nose on these stairs so that it can fit over top of that. But not too bad actually to change out the stairs. They're usually just screwed in a few spots and lifted the whole thing out. Obviously pretty heavy, so I had a friend come and help with that, but it went really well and the new stairs fit quite nicely and not overly expensive. So these stairs were around $600 and a local company was able to make them for me and deliver them here. And then all I had to do was the installation myself, but that went quite well. And then just to finish up on the framing side of things, after I gotten done with the stairs here, was the dividing wall here in the middle. So this will be the door into the office right here, and bathrooms there again, but door into the office. And this part is kind of dividing the rec room area from what is a mess right now, but also what will be the office space with a closet. So eventually this could be a bedroom if we ever were to sell the house or something like that. This could be converted into a bedroom from the office really easily. And then here's the closet. So I offset the doors. You can see it's not quite centered on the wall. I offset them to the left here because I do plan to put a desk along the wall here. And that way, by having the closet doors further out, doesn't interfere with the desk or chairs or anything like that. It does make a kind of deeper spot here that I might use for AV equipment. So Rec Room's going to have a TV and stuff like that and speakers. So I might put all that equipment in here and just use IR repeaters. And that way I can hide all the equipment away so you don't see the lights or hear the noise or anything like that. And just a couple notes about the framing if you're interested. I did put 2x6 sill gasket rather than 2x4 sill gasket underneath. I might have to pour self-leveling, or I probably will have to pour self-leveling on these floors. So I'll be able to fold this up, staple it here, and then pour the self-leveling without getting into the bottom plates. So that's kind of the reason this is all sticking out. And then just to secure it down, I use Tapcons with a washer. So these are 3 1/4 inch Tapcons just down into the concrete to secure the bottom plates. And just making sure I have them in enough spots that it holds the walls even after I cut door thresholds out and things like that. And you'll see just in general, all of the framing I screwed in and framed in place. So these I didn't frame on the ground and lift them up. I framed every single board in place. The reason for that is it does let you pick up a little bit of load. So grab a little bit of load up off of these joists and things like that. And more so just everything fits better. You can get better squareness in fit and finish. It just takes a lot longer. And I like using screws, so everything is just screwed together. You can see here. I haven't used pretty much any nails on the entire basement. Screws, I just find if you make a mistake, you can fix it really easily. You don't have to bang anything out. You just unscrew it and you can, tap something over if you need to and pull stuff together tighter. I always find that nails, they hold all right initially, but if you ever get some movement in them, they start to loosen up over time, whereas screws always hold tight. And because this isn't structural framing, like it's not load bearing or anything like that, technically, you don't need to worry about the shear loads or anything like that like you would with a load bearing wall. Anyway, so next steps, basically, I have to finish plumbing. So obviously there's the rough-in for the drains here, but I need to run the water lines. Luckily, most of that's fairly accessible in the utility room, so it's just going to be some short runs over for the sink, the toilet, and the shower. And then similarly over here with the kitchenette, I will have a sink in this, so there is already the drain. They build a roughed in for that here. And again, the water lines are just kind of over there, so I can run through one of these joists and pull them down into the wall here. So water is next, getting all the plumbing ready. And then after plumbing will be electrical. So I plan to run from the main panel. So we have our main electrical panel and service into the house here, back kind of in the back corner with the laundry. My plan is to run a 60 amp sub panel back out and into the utility room. So you can see it's a bit of a long run here to get over and all the circuits that I'll need for the basement. So for the rec room, for the office, for the bathroom, for the kitchenette, it's an extra 20, 30, 40 feet to run all those lines here. And instead I'm going to put a sub panel, so a 60 amp sub panel somewhere in this vicinity. And by putting a sub panel in here, then I can run to all those locations a lot shorter of runs and just gives me some more expansion in the future if I ever need something down here. There'll be something kind of close and centrally located rather than pulling all the way back from the panel back here. And then once I'm done plumbing and electrical, I'm going to come back and finish bulkheads here. So I don't have a bulkhead over the main trunk and the beam here. I'll have to put a bulkhead in there, as well as just above the hallway here. There's a little bit of stuff that I'll have to do a bulkhead as well. So I'll finish the plumbing and electrical first just to make it easier to access, and then come back and do that. But then following that, once I'm done the plumbing and electrical, I can start insulating the rest of the way. So I'll fill all the stud bays with R14 Roxol insulation and probably do some sound ending between the walls as well. But those are kind of the next steps for me after plumbing and electrical. Anyway, that's where we're at with the basement. So it's been a couple months, but I have been making progress. Obviously, most of the framing is now done. There was around 200 2x4s in this, so it was a fair bit of framing to do, especially putting them one by one. But now that that's out of the way, plumbing and electrical, then insulation, and on to drywall and finishing. Anyway, I'll do another update video once I'm done the plumbing and electrical, so if you're interested in seeing that, make sure you subscribe. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.